Welcome one, welcome all to DeFi Crypto and Airdrops DeFi High Show, brought to you by DeFi University. And David, how's it going, brother?
Outstanding, Mike. Doing well today. How are you, my man?
Oh, doing good, doing good. Just a little bit sleepy. Like I was telling you before we went live, I freaking don't know if I'm not sleeping well or what, but yeah, just freaking. I did my workout this morning, drank my tea. I cannot wake up. But we're gonna go ahead and truck on through this. So, what do you got for us today?
All righty, man. Let's take a look. Today, what we're going to do, and I'm really excited to share this with you. Let me go ahead and get my screen share running and also share some sound here so that we can hear this. So, over here in the DeFi University course hub, I'm almost done with the crypto fundamentals course. Now, I've written all the other courses. I'm going to, hopefully have those all done and published by the end of this week. And what I want to go through here is I believe, Mike, we left off on lesson 4. So I want to start here with lesson 4, crypto always on, 24/7, never closed. And then we're going to be able to move on to module 2, which is blockchain basics in the crypto fundamentals course. And we're going to take a look at lesson 5. What is a blockchain? The architecture of shared trust. And depending on how long it takes for us to get through lesson 4 and 5, then we'll be able to move on into lesson 6, how transactions get verified, how blockchains build trust. So let's start here with lesson 4, 24/7, never closed. And I just want to run through the lesson material. So all of these images, I'm regenerating all of them so that there won't be any hallucinations in them. But yeah, but I mean, these are pretty good placeholders for now, just so you can get kind of the idea. Crypto is 24/7, 365, and banks work, every other Wednesday for 15 minutes, but only during a full moon. So they're open for that window of time, and then they're closed. And so over here, we got the ATM that never sleeps. That is crypto. You can, use your crypto whenever, 24/7, 365. And why traditional finance has hours probably has to do with, just allowing them to make more money. Probably not anything to do with providing more value to the customer. And crypto stays, yeah.
I would think a lot of that is, like you said, profitability. The less they're open, the less they have to pay people and stuff like that. But also that friction that we talked about. If they have longer hours, then that's the faster that money can move. And so,
That's right.
so I mean, if they're closed, because they rely on those manual processes. So if nobody's working, there's nobody to hit the buttons and to check for that money to move. So the longer it stays in their system, and they can earn interest and loan it out and do all that stuff with it.
Yeah, and crypto just doesn't need any of that because in crypto and DeFi, code is law and everything runs on a distributed ledger. So it runs 24/7, 365. And, as long as the requirements in that smart contract are met, then it executes. So that means it's always on.
Yeah, it's
Um,
fully automated. So all the compliance stuff is automatically checked. All of every aspect of it is automatically checked. If funds are available, if the account it's going to is the proper account, if there's a checklist of things that have to occur, if it's for the sale of a house, if a freaking inspection needs to be done, if it needs to make sure that there's no encumbrances, that there's no liens against the property, that there's been a freaking mold inspection, whatever. It can
right.
say, okay, those things are done, and it automatically releases as soon as those things are signed off. So
Yeah, but having 24/7 uptime like that means that if you've got a client in
Dubai,
Thailand,
yeah,
Dubai,
yeah, whatever.
so Thailand would be a better example because it's just like 12 hours different, So when it's noon for me
It's
here
midnight there. Yeah.
it's midnight there. So that's kind of difficult if I need to coordinate some type of, banking payment or something like that. But if I can use crypto, then you can send Bitcoin or Ethereum or USDC or USDT anytime you want. And, an instant settlement. So yeah, that is Crypto networks run 24/7, 365. The decentralization is what enables it. Those traditional hours are increasingly outdated. And I think, Mike, what you were saying is that they're basically there to provide a layer of friction so that the banks can, profit from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And, always on matters. So let's go ahead and run through this video content. Let's see what we need to name the AI here, Mike. For the all of these videos, we need to name her.
Just name it Claude.
Claude,
Yeah.
Cletus. No, it's Cletus.
So
Cletus?
let's talk about something
All right.
that
Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
Cletus might be drinking moonshine because he's hallucinating a little bit.
yeah. So here, let me get this running here, and then we should be good.
Seems simple, but actually unpacks this huge shift in how money works. Why is it you can trade crypto at 3 in the morning on a Sunday, but if you want to send a simple bank wire, you have to wait till Monday morning? Well, the answer tells you just about everything you need to know about where finance is headed. Come on, we have all been there, right? You need to make a payment, it's urgent, or maybe you just remembered a bill is due. You look at the clock and nope, it's too late. You're literally locked out of your own money until the next business day.
So you remember during the pandemic, Mike, that they were running these weird banking hours where it was like, most of the branches closed, at least where I was living in Northern California at the time. Most of the branches were just closed most of the time. And then when they were open until like noon or like 3 p.m., kind of, Oh my goodness.
It is such a common shared frustration. And here's the thing, this isn't some accident. The system is designed this way. The whole world of traditional finance is built around a concept that, in our always on, always connected world, just feels, well, pretty ancient: the business day. I mean, the system was really built for a totally different time. Banks shut their doors at 5, stock markets close up shop for the weekend, and forget about getting anything done on a holiday. If you're trying to send money overseas, you're stuck playing this waiting game, hoping time zones eventually line up. The whole thing is built around people's schedules, not yours. Okay, but what if there was another way? This is where crypto just flips the script entirely. It introduces a financial system that literally doesn't have an off switch. It just runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Now, why is it that it doesn't have an off switch? Well, I think one of the big reasons is that crypto, depending on which chain you're operating on, but all of them basically, is a decentralized ledger. And so you've got this decentralized compute that is verifying transactions 24/7, 365. And so if you're looking to do something really simple, like send an asset or send money to someone, no matter where they are, no matter what time it is, that's super simple because the compute, all of those computers that are going to verify that transaction on the decentralized ledger, they could be all over the world. So that happens 24/7, 365. Let's say that you want to do something much more complicated, like you want to execute a lend borrow on a money market in DeFi. Well, you can do that anytime you want to, because that relies on smart contracts, which exist on this decentralized ledger and are verified using that same decentralized compute that you incentivize by paying gas. So no matter what you want to do, you can do it 24/7, 365. Crypto is the ATM that never sleeps.
And when we say always on, we really do mean it. There's no opening bell, there's no closing time, there are no bank holidays. The network is just always up and running, which means, yeah, your access to your own assets is too. The source material used this fantastic analogy of an ATM that never sleeps, and honestly, it's perfect. Just imagine it, a financial system that works just as well at 3 a.m. as it does at 3 p.m., one that could not care less if it's Christmas Day, one that works in every single country at the exact same time and doesn't just go down for scheduled maintenance the moment you actually need it. That is the core promise of these networks. Okay, so why? Why is there such a massive difference between these two systems? I promise you, it's not magic. It all comes down to the deep, fundamental architecture of how they were built. One was built for people and paper, and the other was built for computers and code. So let's look at the old school way first. Banking hours exist for really, really human reasons. People have to go home, they need to sleep. For a long time, transactions were all processed in these huge groups or batches overnight. And this is the big one. All the different banks needed to agree on a specific time to settle up with each other. Having to find hours just made it easier to manage risk and make sure all the numbers added up at the end of the day. And this right here, this is the absolute core of the difference. On one side, you have a system that completely relies on people sitting in offices. And on the other, you have a system that relies on code running on a global network of computers. One needs to rest, the other doesn't.
See, this is what I was talking about. This is that decentralized ledger. This is the decentralized compute right here. And this is some lady sitting at a desk, and it's almost 5 o'clock, and she can't wait to get out of there.
Right.
So a big difference. And she's probably in the basement of this bank here, like horrible. So she's not exactly incentivized to work quickly, like get it done right now.
In her mind, why no matter how much she does, there's always more to do. It's just and she's just sitting there rubber stamping, transactions.
Right. Yeah. But this model right here, this works at the speed of light and the speed of code, which is
pretty much as soon as you click the button, depending on what chain you're using, it could be a fraction of a second, it could be a couple minutes. If you're trying to use Ethereum during high usage or something like that, or Bitcoin is pretty slow, but most other networks are almost instantaneous. By the time you hit send and call the person to let them know or text them, it's probably gotten there.
And it's already settled, which is it's just amazing. Yeah.
So how does crypto actually pull this off? Well, it really boils down to 4 key things. First, it's decentralized. I'm talking thousands of computers all over the world running the network, so it's always business hours somewhere. Second, the whole process is automated. Code is what verifies transactions, and code doesn't need a coffee break. Third, there's no central office, no headquarters you can just shut down for the night. And finally, the people who run these computers are actually paid. They're incentivized to keep the network running and secure around the clock. And what does that design get you? Well, it gets you this number. A historical uptime for the Bitcoin network of 99.98%. I mean, that is a level of reliability that is almost unheard of for any kind of global system.
So when was it ever down? When was the Bitcoin network ever down? I
don't know. I don't think it ever has.
I know. I don't think so either. Maybe this is wrong. Or maybe we just don't know that, hey, maybe in like the first year of Bitcoin's existence, it was down for some short period of time. I guess that's possible. But I don't know.
And just to put that number into perspective for you, since it was launched way back in 2009, the Bitcoin network has proven to be one of the most reliable financial networks on the entire planet. Your online banking portal might go down for maintenance, but the core Bitcoin protocol, it just keeps chugging along. Okay, so this is all really cool from a tech
real quick.
What you found?
Well, it says that it hasn't had a prolonged global halt, but it has a 99.99% uptime since 2009. It looks like August 15th, 2010, there was a value overflow incident. A bug allowed a transaction to create billions of extra Bitcoin. This caused the network to halt for about 8 to 9 hours while nodes stopped accepting the invalid block. And this is the checks and balances. The network detected that it had been compromised, and so it would not, verify that block. So it says a soft fork was deployed to reject the transactions, and invalid coins were effectively nullified. So it worked as designed. March 11th and 12th of 2013. Chain fork, a software bug related to handling large numbers of transaction inputs caused the blockchain to split into 2 competing versions. For about 6 hours, different parts of the network followed different chains. It resolved naturally as the longer correct chain pulled ahead and nodes upgraded to fix the issue. So, yeah, I mean, it looks like that, it was just exploits that were quickly, realized and addressed, that either automatically by the network, just by design, or by the nodes, the people upgrading the nodes. But, it looks like at no point was it compromised enough to where, like in the case of the overflow incident, that those fraudulent coins, Bitcoin that were minted, they weren't able to, basically cash those out.
So it sounds to me, Mike, like since 2009, there have been 18 hours where Bitcoin was like down, but not even down, just like, trying to fix itself, basically. There was what, a 9-hour halt and then another 9-hour period of time where there was some type of bug. Seems like basically 99.99% uptime.
Yeah. Well, and it didn't go down. I mean, like I said, the one, it just, realized that there was, there was an invalid block, where they tried to make more Bitcoin that, was fraudulent. And so it just rejected that block, it went down while it, resolved.
More Bitcoin. I need more Bitcoin, Mike.
Right.
Perspective, right? But so what? What does this actually mean for us in the real world? Why should you care? Well, think about it. Sending money to someone urgently on a Sunday night, suddenly that's possible. For businesses that operate across the globe, that massive headache of coordinating different banking hours, it just disappears. And in a true emergency, having immediate access to your funds, no matter what time it is, could be absolutely critical. But, let's be fair here. This 24/7 thing doesn't matter to everyone all the time. If you're not in a huge rush for your transactions and waiting till Monday is no big deal, then it's more of a nice to have. And believe it or not, some people actually like that the stock market closes. It forces them to step away and take a break.
So that is definitely a thing. But at the same time, like when I was trading futures and futures options, like TradFi futures and futures options a lot, um, dude, I did not like the weekends. Like Friday was like my least favorite day of the week
Yeah.
because it meant the market closed, and I had to wait until Sunday evening for the market to reopen again, the futures markets to reopen. So, yeah, I'm sure that for some people, they like that markets close, but I don't. So,
I mean, if you want, if you want to have the weekends free, like your, family and stuff like that, and I'm sure it's great. But, if you're somebody that's just, hey, I got a, free, hour or two, I want to sit down, I want to do, do a quick scalp or something like that. It's nice to just do that 24/7, 365. It could be a holiday, it could be, a weekend, you could be anywhere in the world. You could just wake up in the middle, have an alarm go off on your phone, that your favorite, crypto or your favorite tokenized stock is, moving the way that you want it to go, an alarm that you set. And you can just jump up and, okay, yeah, it freaking, my buy order, filled, or my sell order filled, or, whatever. There's just a lot of automation that you can do to where you're just constantly making money or losing money, of course.
well, I mean, what a great word scalping is. Just
Yeah.
take a little bit off the top.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
And this is where you can see the difference so clearly. On the left, all those familiar frustrations: system maintenance, bank holiday closed, your wire will process next business day. Ugh. And on the right, the crypto experience: a transaction confirmed in minutes at 3 a.m.,
Right.
the exact same service on Christmas Day, and money that moves instantly, no matter where you are. It's just a
Exactly.
fundamentally different experience.
It's so much different, but what it is not just different, it's a replacement. So the crypto network experience is a replacement for the traditional banking experience. And it's better. It's just better in every way. The only challenge that still remains is the on and off ramps. That part can still be kind of a pain, going from fiat to crypto and crypto to fiat. That is still a choke point, I think.
Yeah.
Now, this whole always on thing, it's not just a technical feature. It has a very real, very human psychological side to it, especially for anybody who's actively trading in these markets. Because there is a flip side. A market that never sleeps can, well, become a market that never lets you sleep. This constant, nonstop activity can create a pretty unique kind of pressure. For active traders, it's a real dilemma. You see, the stock market closes. Everyone gets a forced break to reset. Crypto markets, they don't. And that can lead to this intense fear of missing out. FOMO, because a massive price swing could happen at any moment, even while you're asleep.
So that's very true. And what I would say is if your face looks like this guy, okay, bug eyes, your mouth open, looks like you haven't
You should probably
slept in
walk
a
away.
couple days,
You should probably not be trading.
you should probably take a break for a couple of
This
minutes.
this goes back to the emotion thing we were talking about last week.
Yeah, and the 24/7, 365 nature of these markets does not mean that you have to be glued to your screen
Mhm,
24/7, 365. What it means is you got to build a system that works for you and for
mhm,
your own emotional state and for your body and for your mindset. And then you got to cultivate the mindset of someone who is successful in this business. And that just, that depends on what your risk tolerance level is, what you're looking to achieve, how much skill you have, your level of education in the space, where you're located geographically, tax laws, stuff like that, what you're allowed to do legally, and
mhm.
what's not okay in certain regions. That's all going to depend on you. But if you look like this guy, you shouldn't be trading. No way.
It really all boils down to that one single nagging question that can keep traders up at night. What if something big happens while I'm sleeping? That constant what if can be absolutely mentally draining. Now, let's be super clear here. If you're a long term holder, someone who's just in it for the long haul, all of this hour to hour movement is basically just noise. But for active traders, the fact that the market never forces you to take a break means that setting your own boundaries, knowing when to just switch off, becomes absolutely essential for your own well being.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. So it really just comes down to, building a set of disciplines for yourself that you can stick to. That's it.
It's pretty much everything in life boils down to discipline, and just being able to structure things. I mean, it's really like for me, it's my whole foundation of being able to accomplish things, and just know that every day you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this, and having rules, like rules of trading, where if you feel yourself getting emotional, you stand up and you walk away. If have a bunch, two losing trades in a row, you make yourself walk away so that you don't revenge trade. Whatever your rules are, it's just that discipline and structure will take you further than pretty much anything, if you're able to dial that in.
You're totally right. And, what Jocko Willing says is discipline equals freedom. And he's
Yep.
totally right, man. It's totally true. And
It's it's saved my bacon, I don't know how many times.
it's so counterintuitive, though. You might think that, if you want freedom, that means you do whatever you want willy nilly, but it's not, at least not in my experience. And as a trader, what I'm finding is that the more disciplined and structured my
Mhm.
system is, and the better I stick to it, the more freedom I have in my mind. That's, that freedom to go and work on another task without
Mm.
thinking about my positions, freedom to step away from screens, freedom to do something else entirely without having my mind ruled by the risk that I'm taking.
Well, and
So, yeah,
that's the key is, I mean, it is freedom because, having that structure, it allows you the freedom to, because you're not sitting there trying to figure out constantly and, plan because you have that, that schedule, those rules, that discipline, then you're able to actually live life. So, that between this time and this time, that's the time that I, work out, or that's the time that, I go for a hike, or I go fishing, or whatever it is that you enjoy. Because you have it structured to where that's the time that you set aside to do that. Because otherwise, if you don't have that structure, you're just going to willy nilly, do whatever feels good at the time, and more often than not, whatever feels good isn't going to be the most productive.
yeah, yeah, that, you know, just focusing on the structure
Mm.
and focusing on the system that works and
Yes,
building that system for yourself,
yes.
because no one can really give it to you. You have to want it. And once you want it and you have a need to know, then guess what? You're going to figure it out. If you have a need to know, you'll figure it out.
Yep,
So,
pain is the best teacher.
yeah, man. If you need to escape some type of pain, then that need to know, that's going to drive you to build that system. All you
Well,
need at that point is
that's what
someone to show you.
Well, that's what businesses are built on, is solving pain points. It's like it is finding the biggest pain point for, retail or for a business, and presenting a solution. It's that vacuum cleaners, freaking cars, all of it was developed to fill a need. People were tired of riding horses, freaking just the maintenance involved and the care involved and the mess involved. And somebody came up with Henry Ford came up with the car, and it was all of a sudden it was just like boom.
So, Mike, what do you think that her pain point is here on the screen? It looks like something to do with time. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, it's freaking out.
Cletus, Cletus, it was giving us a little bit of an
Cletus,
indicator.
what you got, Cletus?
Yeah.
And all of this leads us to the big final question. Our world, for better or worse, pretty much operates 24/7 now. So shouldn't our money do the same? It's a really fascinating question, and the answer is going to shape how all of us think about and use our money for years to come. Thanks for tuning in.
Awesome. So the lesson from that, at least for me, was that crypto operates on a decentralized global ledger and is 24/7, 365, never closed. So we contrasted that to traditional banks. And now we're going to take a look at lesson 5. What is a blockchain? Architecture of shared trust. So let's just roll through this. It's consensus. It's the shared ledger. Let me just roll through the images, the blocks here, the blocks chained together. So that's a block chain, right?
It relating to the architecture.
Right. And then we got, what a blockchain doesn't do. Okay, that'll be interesting to learn about. Let's play this video content. This will be good.
Okay, let's talk about blockchain. You've heard the word a million times, right? It's thrown around everywhere. The future of this, the revolution in that. But what is it actually? Let's cut through all the hype and get right to the core idea. And you'll see it's probably simpler than you think. So let's just start with this one big question. Imagine, what if we could create some kind of digital document, a record of anything really, money, votes, property, you name it. And this document is shared with tons of people. But here's the magic part. No one, not a single person, could go in and secretly change it or delete it. What would that make possible? Well, that's exactly the problem blockchain tries to solve. And the best way to get it, to really understand it, is with a super simple analogy. So for the next few minutes, I want you to just forget all the complicated techie stuff you've heard. Just picture this. A blockchain is basically a very, very special kind of shared Google Doc. Okay, a special Google Doc. What's so special about it, right? Well, it all comes down to a few key rules. Let's walk through them, because this is how we get to this totally new way of creating trust. So this special doc has 5 key rules, and they're all super important. First, pretty much everyone in the world can see it. It's totally public. Second, yeah, anyone can add new lines to it as long as they follow the rules. But here's the big one. Rule 3, no one can delete or change the old lines, ever. Rule 4, every single change is stamped with the exact time and it's permanent. And finally, thousands of people all over the globe have their own identical copy of this document. All these rules working together, they create this perfect, shared, unchangeable record of history. All right, so that's the Google Doc analogy. It's a great way to think about the idea. Now, let's start peeling back the layers and look at the actual technology. And honestly, the name itself, blockchain, tells you pretty much everything you need to know about how it's built. Yeah, it's really just 2 parts. You have the block. Just think of a block as, well, a page in a notebook or a ledger. It's just a collection of new transactions all bundled together. Then you have the chain, and this is where the genius comes in. Every new block that gets added is cryptographically linked to the one right before it. It's like each page has the fingerprint of the last page on it, creating this unbreakable, continuous chain.
Hmm.
So what's actually in one of these blocks? Well, it's pretty straightforward stuff. Exactly what you'd want to see in a transparent ledger. You've got who's sending something, who's getting it, how much is being sent, and the exact timestamp of when it all went down. Every single transaction also gets its own unique ID. So it's all there, clear as day, for the whole network to see.
Wow, that's amazing. So let's just take a look at these components and the description of each of them in a block. So each one of these little units here, this is a block, and then the thing linking it together, that's the cryptographic proof. And then when you link block after block after block, you get the blockchain, right? So you get the sender, whose description is who's sending. So a public address. You've got the recipient. So that's who's receiving. Again, another public address. Notice these are not private addresses. So the private, that would be like your key. The public is what you share with everyone else. So, and then you've got the amount, how much is being transferred. And then you've got the timestamp when the transaction happened. And then you've got the unique ID. So kind of like the hash, maybe a reference for the transaction. And so, Mike, I got to tell you, man, I've been using, ETH testnet Sepolia from within Cursor using AI agents. And dude, like when I'm operating on chain using an AI agent within Cursor, it sees all of these things in every single block and it checks the mempool. So if you've ever, Mike, have you ever had a transaction fail because of like a gas issue and like you have to go in and fix the nonce value for the gas?
Never.
No. So, dude, just all of these items of information, when you start using AI to operate in DeFi for you, it can see all this stuff in real time. So yeah, this is really cool just to see it broken down like this: sender, recipient, amount, timestamp, and unique ID. Awesome.
Well, and the chain, my understanding of the chain is, I always refer to the military because it's where I spent most of my life, but we have a thing called chain of custody. And so basically it's a record of who like physically possessed something. So if it's like a rifle, if it's a piece of intelligence, whatever it is, there's a chain of custody to verify that it only went to authorized places. And that's kind of what I imagine the chain being is, like the different nodes or the, the different, parts, the different computers that are doing the processing and the verifying, the validators. That's what I imagine the chain is between the blocks. The blocks are the information, the transactions, the actual pages of the ledger. And the chain in between is basically like you said, the network that's saying, yes, like we talked about before when, it went down in the very beginnings of Bitcoin, was something in the code said that chain of custody was broken, that somebody, got in there. And so that chain recognized, hold on, and it broke the chain. It said, nope, this is not valid. So, there isn't consensus. So we're going to block this off. We're not going to let this clear until it can resolve. Once they resolved it and said, nope, this is the bad transactions, taking those out. All right, relink the chain, move on. And
take a look at this. It looks like something's breaking here in this.
Because you can see the little mischievous dude is trying to do something shady.
Yeah, it looks like he's scratching his teeth or something.
This is why that chain part is so critical. Imagine someone tries to be sneaky and change something in an old block, let's say block 50. The second they do that, the digital fingerprint connecting it to block 51, it just shatters, it breaks. And because every block is linked, it would cause this massive chain reaction, breaking the link to 52, 53, and all the way down the line. It's impossible to hide. The whole network would see the broken chain immediately. It makes the entire history tamper evident. Okay, so this probably brings a big question to your mind. If there's no bank, no company, no government in charge, who's keeping all these records? Who's making sure everything is legit? And this is where blockchain just completely flips the script on how things are normally done. Think about a bank. They have one central ledger, it's private, and they control it, right? Blockchain is the exact opposite. The ledger is public, and it's not in one place. It's distributed. Thousands of different computers or nodes all around the world each have a perfect identical copy. The power isn't centralized, it's spread out across the network. So how does that stop someone from cheating? Well, it's pretty simple, actually. It's like having thousands of witnesses watching every single move. If one person tries to sneak in a fake transaction on their copy of the book, all the other thousands of computers on the network will instantly see it. They'll compare it to their own copies and go, whoa, wait a minute, that doesn't match. And that fake record, it gets rejected immediately. It's basically.
And so, what else happens if you try to do this on certain chains that, where you've got proof of stake, let's say, and you have to stake some of that underlying asset in order to become, in order to verify transactions.
Mhm.
If you try to pass through a false record in a block, you could actually get slashed. So there's, they've created these financial disincentives also.
Like
Almost,
security
almost,
by
almost like a ticket or a penalty.
Yeah, it would almost be like a severe fine.
committee, a very, very large committee. Okay, so that's the how it works. Now for the really important part, the so what. What do we get from all this? What are the big, powerful results of building a system this way? Well, you end up with some really incredible properties. Because the ledger is public, you get total transparency. Anyone can go look at it. Because of that chain we talked about, you get immutability. The past literally cannot be changed without everyone knowing. Because thousands of computers hold a copy, you get decentralization. No one person is in charge. And all of that together leads to the real superpower: verifiability. You don't have to trust anyone. You can just check the facts for yourself. And that's the key takeaway, really. It's a subtle
Mhm.
but massive difference. It's not about creating a world without trust. It's about creating a world where trust isn't required in the first place. You're moving away from a system where you have to blindly trust an institution like a bank to a system where you can just verify. It's a huge shift from
Yeah, so trust but verify. It's you verify instead of trust. I love it, man. It's so good. You no longer have to ask permission of a third party because of this stuff.
This is another saying we had in the military, but it was trust but verify. So
Yeah.
it was do both. It's like that redundancy.
Yeah, trust and verify.
Mhm. It's like,
trusting
I trust you, but I'm gonna verify it too.
Exactly. Exactly.
verifying. Now, we have to be real here. To get the full picture, we need to talk about what blockchain isn't. It's a really powerful technology, for sure, but it's not some magic wand that you can wave at every problem.
That's a that's
So
that's
let's
that's the way, liberals think bullets work is the casing and the round it
It's
flies
just the
together.
same thing. They fly
Yeah,
together.
yeah, they just fly together.
I guess that's how Cletus thinks bullets work.
Yeah, yeah, Cletus must be a liberal.
Yep.
problem. So let's be super clear about the limitations. First, blockchain can't tell if the information put on it was true to begin with. Garbage in, garbage out. It can record that someone said a diamond was authentic, but it can't check the actual diamond. All it does is guarantee that the record, once it's there, is never changed. Also,
But
it's not
I wanna
automatically.
point out something. It can make it to where only certain individuals can sign off as that diamond being certified. So if there's, actual trusted individuals that can inspect it, or the person buying it has their person that they trust, they can say that this wallet address, or, this individual is the only one that can verify that that diamond is what they're saying it is, and that transaction won't go through until that individual inspects it and says, "Yes, it's good."
Yeah, so what we're basically talking about here is, an oracle almost.
Mhm.
We're talking about how do you verify the authenticity of something in real life
Yeah.
on a blockchain?
Mhm.
And that requires that there is some trusted third party in there at some point. Um,
There's gonna be manual processes, on almost anything, until it's tokenized. If that diamond is tokenized, and as long as it's custody, the physical custody of it is with, trusted, institutions, then yeah, you can buy and sell that and know that, you're getting, like if it was De Beers, and you went online and there's a tokenized diamond, and you're like, okay, I bought it, and it's in De Beers custody and it's a trusted institution, then you know that, you own that diamond that is that many carats, it's that cut, it's that clarity, all those different things.
100%. Now, I can imagine a future where anything can be tokenized and brought on chain where its authenticity can be verified.
Yeah.
That I think we're marching towards that future, at a gallop.
Yes.
Private. Most blockchains are public, and it's definitely not going to replace every database out there. And that brings us to the big trade off. All this work, getting thousands of computers to agree and verify everything, It takes a lot of energy, and it can be way slower and more expensive than just using a regular old centralized database. So you have to think of it like a specialized tool. It's not for everything, it's for those specific situations where that level of security and decentralization is absolutely what you need. So let's wrap it up here. When you boil it all down, blockchain is really just a new way, a new architecture for creating a shared history that everyone can agree on. You could even call it a trust machine. And that leaves us with the biggest question of all, doesn't it? In our world, which is full of middlemen and complex systems, where do we need that kind of unbreakable, verifiable trust the most?
Hmm. Probably in finance, maybe in, I think that there's probably a lot of business applications for this technology. So maybe not just in finance, probably all over the place.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say banking and finance is, and it's kind of why I've really honed in on DeFi and the financial aspect is that's where I see the biggest pain point is with the largest amount of liquidity, the just a whole freaking kaleidoscope of pain points. And, it's just and that's where, most of the focus, I think, is gonna be when it comes to governments and banks and institutions and all of that. Again, like I said at the very beginning, the bigger the pain points and the more plentiful the pain points, the more profitable, something is. Amazon, it solved a huge pain point. For the most part, you don't even gotta leave your house. You can get groceries, anything that you wanna buy. You can buy I mean, hell, they sell tiny homes on fucking Amazon. It's like literally, they solve that pain point. And, Microsoft, I've brought this up before. You don't have to be a coder, to use a computer anymore. You can just double click on icons and stuff. Massive pain point. What else? Internet. There was huge limitations on where you could get internet before Starlink. That's why it's blowing up is, anywhere in the world you can have high speed internet now. You can stream, you can bank, you can, freaking watch movies, whatever. You can be in the middle of the freaking, Pacific or Atlantic Ocean and, be like you're sitting, in a house in the middle of a, major urban city. So that's what it all boils down to. If you're looking at what to invest in, just look at whatever is solving the most painful thing for, you know, banks and institutions, or just large entities that have a lot of money or, and in this case, a lot of money to move, a lot of value to move.
Yeah, man. And, I'm thinking about how is it that these transactions, these valuable transactions that get moved, when value gets moved, how do the actual transactions themselves get verified? And so I think that that's what we'll finish up with here today, Mike, how blockchains build trust and how transactions actually get verified here. So let's take a look at this.
All right, let's dive into something that's really at the heart of all this blockchain tech, trust. We're going to break down how in the world it's possible to build a totally secure financial system when there's no one, and I mean no one, actually in charge. I mean, think about it. How can you be sure that when somebody sends you some crypto, it's actually real, that it was theirs to send in the first place? And crucially, how do you know they didn't just send that exact same coin to someone else a second ago?
That chain of
Without a
custody.
bank in the middle to vouch for everything, how does any of this work? Well, that is the big puzzle we are going to solve right now. The solution, and it's a brilliant one, starts by completely flipping how we think about trust. See, instead of putting all our faith in one single central place, a blockchain asks us to trust the power of a huge, spread out crowd. So on the left, you've got the system we all know, right? Like a bank. All our trust is piled into that one entity, but that creates what's called a single point of failure. If that bank gets hacked or makes a big mistake, everything is at risk. Now look at the right. That's the blockchain model. Trust isn't in one place, it's distributed across thousands of different people. There's no one central server to attack, which makes the whole network unbelievably resilient. Here's a great way to think about it. Would you feel safer with just one security guard watching your most valuable stuff? I mean, they could be bribed or just fall asleep, right? Or would you feel safer with a crowd of 1,000 independent witnesses where any single one of them can sound the alarm if something looks fishy?
Well, here's the thing though. If
It
these were,
depends on who the
it
people.
really does. I was just thinking to myself, like, I don't know. I could probably find 1,000 people, but I don't know if I would really trust them.
Now, if it was 1,000 computers, that,
Right.
are told that, kind of the logic of, the checks and balances, and they can't waver from it. I do trust that. But yeah, it's I would
Right.
there's yeah, the AI, or not Claude, but freaking Cletus, um,
Cletus.
might want to like tweak this a little bit.
Yeah, because I would trust 1,000 computers all running the same code where I
Yes.
can verify the code. Like
Yeah.
I can trust that more than I can trust one individual human. But the
Yeah.
idea of 1,000 people and I'm just going to trust them, like I don't know about all that.
No, and I'd rather just vet one person than 1,000 people.
Probably got some Somalis in there too. I don't know.
Blockchain bets everything on the power of that crowd. So let's really run with that analogy, the 1,000 witnesses. It is genuinely the perfect way to understand how a blockchain actually confirms a transaction from start to finish. Okay, so just imagine you're signing a major contract, but you do it in front of 1,000 independent notaries. First, they all watch you sign it. Simple enough. Then each one of them, on their own, checks to make sure your signature is legit. After that, every single one of them records what just happened in their own personal ledger. But here's the real magic, the final step. They all compare their notes with each other. And that contract only becomes official, locked in, when the vast majority of them agree on every single little detail.
So that's called consensus, right?
Mhm.
I think
Yeah,
that's what that's called.
it is.
This whole process, watching, checking, recording, and comparing, that is exactly what a blockchain does every single time a transaction happens.
Okay, so we've got these witnesses, which, in the real world are actually computers we call validators or miners, and we know they're checking things. But what are they actually looking for? Well, for every single transaction that comes through, they run this really simple but incredibly powerful checklist. First up, do you actually have the funds? They scan the entire history of the blockchain to make sure, yep, the money is in your wallet. Second, is your authorization valid? They use some pretty cool cryptography to prove it's really you sending the money and not an imposter. Third, and this is the absolute key to making digital money work, they check for conflicts. They make sure you aren't trying to spend the exact same digital coin in two different places. This is what solves the famous double spend problem. And finally, they just do a quick check to make sure the transaction follows all the basic rules of the network. Only when all four of those boxes are checked does the transaction get the green light.
Mhm.
Now, this brings up a really important question. In this big decentralized system with thousands of computers all checking things, who gets to be the official witness? Who actually gets to add the next batch of transactions to the permanent record? Well, there are two main ways this gets decided.
Okay, so let's just take a look at this. Proof of work versus proof of stake. So proof of work, I think the most famous example here is Bitcoin, right?
Mhm.
That's a proof of work chain. Proof of stake, the most famous example would be Ethereum. It's a proof
Mhm.
of stake chain. So
Mhm.
let's take a look. Let's see what Cletus says about proof of work.
First, you've got proof of work. This is the OG system, the one that powers Bitcoin. You have these miners with super powerful computers all competing in this massive global race to solve a ridiculously hard math puzzle. The first one to solve it gets to add the next block of transactions to the chain, and they get a reward for their effort. The security here comes from the fact that it is just insanely expensive to cheat. To attack the network, a bad guy would need a mind-boggling amount of computing power and electricity. We're talking more than all the honest miners combined. It's
Yeah, but isn't there that potential problem with like quantum computers that could, they're just like so much faster that they don't need unlimited energy and unlimited compute? They could like break the code somehow. I don't know,
And
man.
again, it's like I just I know that that's a thing, if, quantum computing ever, actually materialized, but again, it's just I kind of feel like it would be a moot point because with quantum computing, everything breaks. The whole system breaks. Banking, all the the financial system, crypto, I mean, you name it. With quantum computing, nothing is secure. So,
Yeah.
it's kind of it's almost pointless to worry about because other than the fact that just understanding that if quantum computing comes out and they don't have something that can secure things from it, it's just it's everything's going to break.
Agreed.
just not practical. Then there's
I think Cletus agrees too. Just not practical.
It's just not practical.
the other method, proof of stake. This is what Ethereum and a lot of the newer blockchains use. Here, instead of solving puzzles, these validators lock up or stake their own cryptocurrency as collateral. It's like putting down a security deposit. The network then randomly picks one of these validators to create the next block. If they do their job honestly, they get a reward. But
Yeah.
if they try to cheat the system,
They get
their
slashed.
Right. They get slashed. Exactly.
collateral gets destroyed. Poof, it's gone. So the security here comes from having skin in the game. You're financially motivated to play by the rules because cheating means you lose your own money.
Right.
And when you put them side by side like this, the trade-offs become really clear. Proof of work, like Bitcoin, is an absolute fortress in terms of security. But man, it's slow and it uses a ton of electricity. Proof of stake, on the other hand, which Ethereum uses, is way faster and much, much more energy efficient. Its security comes from that economic stake rather than raw computing power.
Mhm.
So, your transaction is verified, it's added to a block. You might think we're all done, but we're not quite. There is one last, absolutely crucial piece to this trust puzzle, and that's time. See, when your transaction gets into a block on the chain, that's called one confirmation. Every new block that gets added on top of it is another confirmation. And each new block is like another layer of concrete being poured on top, burying your transaction deeper and deeper into the chain.
Hmm.
Each layer makes it exponentially harder and more expensive for anyone to go back and try to change the past.
Got it.
So while one confirmation is probably fine for buying a coffee, a huge transaction might wait for 12 or more confirmations, making it pretty much irreversible.
Wow.
Time itself becomes a lock, cementing that transaction into history forever. And that waiting time, that block time, varies a whole lot between different blockchains. For Bitcoin, a new block gets added roughly every 10 minutes. For Ethereum, it's about every 12 seconds. And then you have some of these newer chains like Solana that are cranking out blocks in under a second. But this doesn't mean faster is always better. It's a really fundamental design trade-off that every blockchain has to make between speed, security, and decentralization.
Right. So that's
The
called
trilemma.
the trilemma. Yeah. So, I mean, Bitcoin, for anyone who's ever used the Bitcoin chain, it's super slow. It takes, usually for a decently sized transaction, it takes at least 10, 15 minutes. On Ethereum's pretty slow too, although it's getting better. Solana is very fast. Now, Ethereum's layer twos, depending on which one you use, but for the most part, they are all very fast and very cheap. Solana is very, very fast and very cheap. So is Sui. Sui is very fast and very cheap.
Well, and a lot of it has to do with how busy the network is as well, and it varies. But yeah, it's just they're faster. Some are faster than others.
Yeah, definitely. So let's take a look. Let's see.
Okay, so let's just pull this all together.
I got a couple more minutes. I got a hard stop. Since it's
Gotcha.
Monday, I got the money talks. Here in about 2 or 3 minutes.
Gotcha.
Blockchain builds trust not through some central bank, but through a massive crowd of witnesses. These witnesses verify every single transaction against a strict checklist. They're chosen to be the official record keeper based on either showing proof of computational work or by putting up an economic stake. And with every new block that gets added, that trust just gets stronger and stronger as time itself locks the history of the chain in place. So we've figured out how we can trust that a transaction happened exactly as it was supposed to, all without a middleman. But that opens up an even bigger, kind of more profound question. If you can prove a transaction is valid and irreversible, what does that say about what it means to truly own something in a world that's purely digital? And that's a thought to take with you. Thanks for tuning in.
What does it mean to truly own a digital asset? Huh. It's an interesting question.
So we're on lesson 7 tomorrow.
Yep, lesson 7 tomorrow. Why it's hard to cheat. Why blockchains are immutable. So this is what we're going to be taking a look at tomorrow. The
Perfect.
puzzle piece analogy. What is a hash? The 51%. Smaller networks are riskier. So this will be great. So Mike, I know you gotta run.
Absolutely.
So let me go ahead and stop the share here, and we can wrap things up.
All right. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much sums it up. It's but yeah, I mean if anybody that I'll give you some closing thoughts, but yeah, join us for Money Talks after this, where Mondays, Taylor, my brother, and his business partner Jeff, licensed financial advisor. Taylor, he owns a couple of his own law firms and title companies, real estate title companies. and we just talk about wealth preservation, wealth preservation strategies and, things like that in traditional markets. So, David, closing thoughts?
Yeah, more Bitcoin. MOAR.
Yeah, MOR, more. All right. Well, I appreciate you all for tuning in. Until next time, Veteran Crypto out.
Peace.